Some sort of Final Fantasy revelation is being teased for tomorrow's State of Play coming from PlayStation. Now, that State of Play is only gonna be 10 minutes long, and the last State of Play was such a disappointment that everyone pointing towards Final Fantasy VII Remake being shown off. Yes, I would love that as well, but I think we need to temper our expectations a little bit. Nonetheless, I'll take a look at that. Also, we've got some free stuff available on the PlayStation Store right now. The Game of Thrones Dragon Dynamic theme is once again available. This was available for a little bit, for a limited time period. But nonetheless, now you can get the dynamic theme free on the PlayStation Store, so I want to give that a mention. Also, we've got some major betas kicking off very soon. Code Vein will be having a network test that you can sign up for right now, as will Granblue Fantasy Versus. A closed beta test for that is scheduled from May 31st to June 1st, and then the Code Vein beta, we still don't have an official date, but you can sign up right now. And EA is projecting that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be a massive success, and they are expecting it to sell 6 to 8 million copies by the end of the fiscal year. Now, EA's projections recently have been a little off, so I'll talk that at the end of this video. First up, everybody is getting riled up right now with the possibility that the Final Fantasy VII Remake might make a reappearance tomorrow as a part of PlayStation State of Play. Now, the State of Play event will be held at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and it's only going to be 10 minutes long. We do know that some sort of medieval gameplay will be shown off. That's the medieval remaster, but also a new game will be revealed. Some people are pointing to the fact that it might be a re-reveal of some game. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, I don't really know if you could classify that as a re-reveal at this point. I mean, it has been, what, 3.5 years since we last saw gameplay? I guess you could consider that a re-reveal. However, very interestingly, Shinji Hashimoto, who is the Final Fantasy brand manager, tweeted out in response to the PlayStation's State of Play tweet, just stating, "Oh, you've come." And then, interestingly enough, the Final Fantasy Twitter account put out a very vague tweet, an image of Final Fantasy VII with Cloud pointed towards a chocobo. Now, this is getting people really riled up and thinking that some sort of Final Fantasy VII Remake announcement will be dropping tomorrow. I just don't think that's the case, considering E3 is next month, and we know that Square Enix is going to have some sort of presence then. They're going to have their own conference or their own video package that they're going to show off. They did a video package last year, so I don't know if it's going to be a traditional conference, but you guys get the idea. Now would be a pretty odd time to show off something Final Fantasy VII Remake related, unless you give it to typical Square Enix fashion in that it's an announcement for an announcement for an announcement or something like that, where tomorrow they'll say the Final Fantasy VII Remake will be at E3. That's the type of stuff that Square Enix does. They tease an announcement for an announcement for an announcement. That's just Square Enix MO, and that's why these games seemingly never come out. Remember with Final Fantasy 15, they literally held an event to announce the release date for that game, and guess what? They ended up delaying that release date as well. So with Square Enix, you never really know what to expect, given that the image also specifically does direct the camera towards a chocobo. Could it be some chocobo related game, some spin-off that's gonna make everyone incredibly disappointed? That's why I do not want to push the cart before the horse, but something Final Fantasy related is definitely coming tomorrow. Is it gonna be the FF7 Remake? I find that a little bit hard to believe, but we will keep you guys posted. Next up, over on the PlayStation Store right now, you can get the Game of Thrones Dragon Dynamic theme. This was available a little bit as that PlayStation View promotion. However, it was a limited time availability and they had a limited amount of quantity available. Now they've just listed it on the PlayStation Store and it's available for everyone. Customize your PlayStation 4 system with a cool theme. This theme allows you to change up the look and background of your PlayStation dynamic menu. Now, this theme does also play the Game of Thrones music, so you can turn off the music if you don't want that impaled into your brain, but nonetheless, a pretty slick theme, and it's available free right now. Thought I would mention that. We'll leave a link in the description box down below. Just add it to your library, even if you're not a fan of Game of Thrones. Who knows? Maybe down the line, you'll watch Game of Thrones and you'll get super invested into it. As I mentioned in a previous video, I am probably one of the 4 people left in the world that has never watched an episode of Game of Thrones, but nonetheless, I've added the dynamic theme to my library, and you should too. Alright, next up, you can sign up for a Code Vein network test right now. It looks like the network test will be occurring sometime in May, but it will be limited to a certain amount of people on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but you can sign up and hopefully you can get in. Code Vein was announced a while ago, back in April of 2017. Originally, it was set to be released in September of 2018, then it was pushed back to spring of 2019. Of course, the game's not going to be out this spring. Who knows when it's going to be out? Hopefully by the end of the year. The game is set in a post-apocalyptic dystopian setting with vampire themes, including gifts from the consumption of blood and other supernatural abilities. It's set in an open-world, post-apocalyptic, dystopian environment and played from a third-person perspective. The gameplay is said to be inspired by the Dark Souls style of gameplay, and it is done by Bandai Namco Studios. See some resemblances to God Eater, as well seems to be a marriage of a lot of popular IPs. The game looks incredibly compelling. I just want to hear more about it. It's good to see that the game is going to have some sort of network test, meaning that it's probably progressing pretty far along in development, and hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year. I don't think we're going to see it anytime in the summer, especially because summer usually isn't where we see major game release. Although a game like Code Vein would have a great release over the summertime when there aren't a lot of major game releases. If you wait until the fall, yes, that's generally a time period where we expect major game releases, but at the same time, you're competing with a lot of other games, and I don't know if that's the wisest thing for a new IP like this that is still going a little bit under the radar, but nonetheless, we'll leave a link down below where you can sign up for the network test. Also, another closed beta will be running from May 31st to June 1st in Granblue Fantasy Versus. Psy Games will host a closed beta test for Granblue Fantasy Versus from May 31st to June 1st, the company announced. Beta test applications are now open in English and Japanese and will close on May 24th at 11 p.m. Pacific Time, May 25th at 6 a.m. GMT. The application results will be announced on May 28th, and they will be limited tests in Windows May 31st from 2 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Pacific, then May 31st from 6 p.m. Pacific to 11 p.m. Pacific, and then June 1st at 9 a.m. Pacific to 2 p.m. Pacific, so very weird windows. Unfortunately, that's probably going to limit a lot of people from actually playing the game, but nonetheless, I wanted to give that a mention as well, and we'll leave a link to that in the description box below. Of course, Granblue Fantasy Versus is the fighting game spin-off to Granblue Fantasy. Granblue Fantasy Relink is the one that all of you guys are excited for, and it's a brand new, compelling JRPG. That game looks to be incredible. Platinum Games was working on it alongside Psy Games for a little bit. However, Platinum Games did move away from the project, and now Psy Games are working on it all alone. Hopefully that's another release before the end of the year. Probably more likely than not, it'll end up being a 2020 game. But nonetheless, at least right now, you can sign up for the closed beta test for Granblue Fantasy Versus. Again, link for that in the description box below. And lastly, EA has been stumbling a lot recently with the release of games like Battlefield 5 Anthem, and more notably, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront has probably been the biggest missed opportunity of this generation so far. I don't think that's an overstatement or hyperbolic in any sense. When I heard back in 2014 that EA had gotten the rights to Star Wars, and then we got the announcement of Star Wars Battlefront, I was like, man, there is no way they can mess this up from being one of the biggest game franchises of the entire generation. And lo and behold, they messed it up from being one of the biggest game franchises in the entire generation with everything that happened with Battlefront 1 in its lack of content. Battlefront 2 was really dead before it even arrived, and even though it's a pretty good game now, just because of all the disasters that happened with that game prior to its launch, it has never been able to recover. And now we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which thankfully it's a different game than Battlefront. It's gonna have a new coat of paint to it. Respawn is working on it, and it is a single-player Star Wars experience with, get this, no microtransactions. So I feel like if Respawn does deliver with Jedi Fallen Order, if it turns out to be a good game, people will be all over it. However, EA does have some incredibly lofty expectations for the game, specifically during its earnings call from Electronic Arts going over financial information from Q4 of the past fiscal year. EA CEO Andrew Wilson and CFO Blake Jorgensen said that they expect Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to sell between 6 and 8 million copies after it releases later in 2019. Now that's for until the end of the fiscal year, which wraps up March 31st, 2020, giving it around a 4.5-month window to accumulate 6 to 8 million copies. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, and that sounds to be an incredibly lofty goal, especially with it being a single-player focused game. 6 to 8 million copies is absurd. Games like God of War and Marvel's Spider-Man have a hard time reaching those numbers. Now, of course, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order does have the benefit of being a multi-platform title, but even then, 6 to 8 million copies within a 4.5-month time span, I just find that to be an incredibly lofty expectation because the game is still battling upon the negative stigma that Star Wars and EA just generally has. There's a lot that needs to be done for gamers to just respect the Star Wars game again, and even though it's an offshoot and completely separate from Star Wars Battlefront, people are going to associate Star Wars and EA together, and there are going to be some people that just look at this as another EA Star Wars property, and that'll inherently make them very skeptical. So for EA to think the game's gonna sell 6 to 8 million copies, I know that's to make investors happy, but at the same time, I just think that's a little bit of a lofty expectation, and honestly speaking, I think 3 to 4 million numbers would be a gigantic success for the game, but what do I know? That's just speculation on my part. But we'll definitely keep you guys posted as we hear more about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and that's gonna conclude this video. Again, it looks like some sort of Final Fantasy announcement will be coming tomorrow. Will it be the Final Fantasy VII Remake? I find that a little bit hard to to believe, but we'll keep you guys posted. Right now, you can get the Game of Thrones Dragon Dynamic theme over on the PlayStation Store absolutely free. Bandai Namco is accepting signups for a network test for Code Vein. That'll be kicking off later this month. The Granblue Fantasy Versus closed beta test is set from May 31st to June 1st, and you can sign up for that closed beta as well. And EA is projecting Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to sell 6 to 8 million copies by the end of the fiscal year. I find that a little bit of a lofty goal, but we'll keep you guys posted on everything. Sound off with your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.